Hi, welcome to the small shed. This Saturday I'm resealing the shower tray. See you in a minute. Now this is one of the jobs that's been causing many of the problems that I've got at the moment with too many things to do and not enough time. This goes back quite a way in that we've been having problems with the shower for probably 18 months or more now. It's getting slowly more and more, or less and less flow in the shower. And I've swapped the shower heads, I've swapped the shower itself, the unit. I've tested water pressures and things like that, and it didn't seem to be a problem. Eventually I found the problem was a tiny little filters that were tucked away almost in the wall when I'd put the connectors in. There are a pair of filters on the actual shower block itself, but these were another pair further down inside, and I couldn't actually get at them because I'd built them into the wall. But a quick foray with a 10mm drill sorted it out, and all is now well. But I thought I'd take the opportunity while I was in there to refresh the shower a bit. The tray was getting a little bit skanky around the bottom edge. The silicone starts to go a bit old and mouldy after a while, and you get the odd bit where it's pulling away and starting to cause problems. So I thought I'd rip it all out, and while I was doing it I thought I might as well show you how I do it. It's not necessarily a tutorial, but it's probably the lazy man's way of dealing with masticing the shower. So let's go and have a look at it. So this is the shower tray itself. As I say, it's not too bad, but it is starting to show that it's been a year or two since it's been dealt with, and some of the mastic is pulling away from the wall. There's a little bit of black mold appearing that you can't. I think there are solutions to avoid and get rid of this stuff, but it's generally a sign that things are needing to be done, and in particular around the shower block itself, all the connectors into the wall, I'd had all those out, so there was no seal. So unless I did something with that, I was going to get water into the wall structure. So I've started off just basically cutting out all the old mastic with one of these flexible knives. I've got an advantage in that this shower tray is ceramic and therefore hard vitreous enamel glazed or whatever. It's almost like a glass finish on it. I suspect it would be much more difficult with a glass reinforced fibre one, because they scratch more easily. But with a little bit of persistence you can get the stuff out. I put this in before the wall was tiled so that you could get a wrap over of the tiling over the top edge, but that makes its own problems in that you get a void underneath the tile if you're not careful, that although the mastic goes in and binds in there and helps seal it, it's a bit of a pig to get out afterwards if you want to reseal. So it was a combination of chisels, knives, getting all the clear stuff out the corner that was again starting to look a little bit tired, and getting it all cleared up. Once it's all done and resealed, I'll retreat the walls again, because they're like a limestone, I think, that needs a treatment every now and again. And however hard I tried, I was still having some difficulty in getting the bits out, and in the past I've just sort of ignored that and cleaned up, swept up and left it to its own devices. But this time I'd seen reference to silicone solvents, which I didn't know were a thing until recently. So I thought I would have a go with that, because it doesn't matter how much you go at it with a knife, you can see even there's still little bits that are hanging around that mean that there is not the adequate seal that you would get if it was totally clean. So I went down to my local screw fix and got some of this solvent sealer or sealant solvent. and in all honesty I was totally expecting it to be rubbish, and not expecting it to do anything really. I thought it was a bit of a gimmicky thing that wouldn't do any do any work, but it turned out to be brilliant. I probably, if I'd have had it, I'd have put it on before I even started, because what it tends to do is make the silicone into almost like a slurry, and you can see it coming off. It pulls it out as a sludge rather than little bits, and it makes a much better job of getting rid of the old silicone itself than I was doing by hand. So yeah, hats off to whoever invented that. It's made the job a lot more easy, and also all the bits like round the actual shower block, it's pulled all that off. Even on the chrome it was pulling the silicone off it. Give it a quick wipe down with a damp cloth, then clean all the old silicone remover off, dried it out, all ready for the new mastic. And it's this point that I normally hate, because I hate dealing with silicone. It's a horrible job, it's horrible material, and I've never succeeded very well in getting a decent seal with it, because the pros come along with their gun and they just squirt along the edge, run the finger along it, and it's done, and it's perfect when they're finished. And I've seen them do it time and time again. And normally I would probably have even thought quite seriously about getting somebody in to do it, but I'd seen one or two folks doing it in the past with masking tape, and I've tried it once or twice on baths and things and got on quite well with it. All I'm doing is putting a strip of masking tape about 10 to 15 millimeters either side of the joint, and that's dependent on how big a curve you want on your mastic joint really. And all it's doing is just protecting the wall, because when you start going in with the mastic itself, it's filthy stuff, and no matter what you do, or no matter what I do, I end up smearing it all up the wall and goodness knows where else, and you can't really tidy it up, because once it's dry it pulls off like rubber bands, and if you try and do it when it's wet it just makes it worse. So I've gone back in now with mastic gun and silicone, and it doesn't really matter at this stage how good or bad you make that joint, because it's not going to get any further than the edge of the tape, because it's protected by the masking tape. And you can run I've got a small silicone rubber rounded cove tool thing that I just run along it, that puts you pretty much a perfect cove into the mastic, and you can go 2 or 3 times along it with this. You can see even here it's starting to smear up onto where the wall, it would be where the wall was, but it's onto the masking tape, so it's not doing any harm. And you can get a couple of passes along that, get it to a stage where it's a reasonably good finish, and it's not causing any great distress to anywhere else other than purely and simply that joint. So I just tend to run back and forth until I've got an even smooth line. You can come back and forth with this tool once or twice and it'll get you a decent finish. It scrapes off any surplus, and then you get a decent line. Same along the other edge. Fortunately with this shower there's only 2 edges that I have to do, but certainly around baths and things this is the way I'm tending to do it nowadays. Same principle again, just run back and forth till you've got a nice even coverage and a smooth consistent line, and you can use any surplus that you gather on the tool itself to just fill in any areas where there was perhaps not quite enough. Now while that's still wet, just pull the masking tape off, which is very messy. It's got to be careful where you put the stuff because it's covered in mastic, but just take all that off. Reason for taking it off then, if you try and take it off when it's dry, obviously it'll just pull the whole lot off, including the bit you want to keep. And as you pull it off, it is leaving effectively an edge, which is the thickness of the masking tape, top and bottom or either side of the joint. So it's not necessarily ideal in that situation, because it's an area where it'll either start and get mould or it'll pick up and not seal properly. So once I've done that, get some soapy water just on the end of your finger and just run it along and smooth that edge over. And by this time the actual silicone is starting to set anyway, so you get a nice chance to get a decent smooth run along it without any massive disturbance of the silicone, but it just smooths down those edges either side of the tape where the tape has been. Same up in the corners with the clear. That's less of a problem because you can't see the sort of mess you're making, if you like, so I tend to not bother with it for that. I tend to just put a clear mastic up, and again same thing, just run my finger up it with a soapy water on it, and that way you can't see with the clear whether there's a problem or not, whether you've put too much on. And that's done it now. So the shower is now refreshed, working like it should do, and we're back in household harmony because we've got a shower that works. Right, so that's got the shower tray sorted. Another little job done, another one ticked off the list, and we are making slow inroads into these things. So hope the video was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next time. We'll be doing something different. I'll see you then. Bye.